Is James Harden the best pure scorer of all time? Let's get into this. Throughout James Harden's whole entire career, he's always been known as a guy who can really score the ball in this league. But ever since Harden was traded to the Houston Rockets from the OKC Thunder and really was given the keys to do whatever he wants and run the offense, he really took his game to the next level and his scoring ability to the next level. And every single season after his first season joining the Houston Rockets, James Harden has improved his game every year, until now where he's an absolute juggernaut offensively. But let's get to the question of this video. Is James Harden truly the best scorer of all time? To answer this question, let's break down his offensive game. Now first, of course, let's look at James Harden's three-point jump shot. So obviously James Harden has a very prolific three-point jump shot, and he's a very efficient shooter from three as well. James Harden is shooting a career 36% from three, which is pretty good, especially for the amount of attempts that he takes per game. And James Harden is not usually a catch and shoot guy from three because he mostly has the ball in his hands. He's more of a guy who creates and takes a three from that. So he's very prolific from the three when you consider the fact that he's creating for himself, and usually when you're doing that, you're usually contested from three. And the fact that he's hitting such a high percentage from three just shows his really true ability to shoot the three ball. So obviously James Harden is a really prolific three-point shooter, but moving on to other skills of his game, let's move on to his handling ability. James Harden has a very elite handle in this league, and Harden uses it perfectly to either get open shots from three or use it to get by defenders and get to the basket. And as I mentioned in my last point, Harden is a very good three-point shooter, so when that's the case and you have really good handling as well, that really opens up everything else and you can now get to the basket easier. James Harden has definitely worked on his handle ever since he got into the NBA, and now he's at a point where he's one of the best ball handlers in the league. Now let's get to James Harden's next point, which is ability to get to the basket and finish around the basket. James Harden's ability to get to the basket and finish around the basket is all made easier due to the last 2 points I made. So obviously when you're a very good three-point shooter like James Harden is, the defender needs to stay up on you to prevent you from getting open threes, and when you have really good handling ability and you can use that to get open threes, they also have to stay pretty tight up on you, and now that makes it easier to get to the basket. And now when you're getting to the basket, you're more likely to be more open just due to the fact that the defender was guarding you so uptight, and now it makes it for easier finishes. As an offensive player, when you're very prolific at one part of your game, let's say shooting or getting to the basket, it just makes every other part of your game exponentially easier. And when you're good at almost everything offensively like James Harden is, it's just impossible to guard. But getting back to the point of James Harden's finishing ability, James Harden is not necessarily the most athletic guy out there, but he's very crafty when he gets to the basket. James Harden definitely does have a few posters when he gets to the basket, like that crazy posterizing dunk over Draymond Green in the playoffs, but that's not typically what he does. Off the pick and roll, or even when James Harden just gets to the basket using his ball handling ability, he has that very effective floater that he has, which is the exact same form as when he throws that lob to the rolling player like DeAndre Jordan currently, or any other center he had in the past, maybe Clint Capella. And the fact that he uses the exact same form to either shoot that floater or throw up that lob, it makes it almost impossible for the defender to tell what he's going to do. And I'm sure sometimes when James Harden jumps up to either throw that lob or put in that floater, I'm sure he doesn't even know what he's going to do when he jumps up in the air. So if he doesn't know, the defender definitely doesn't know, and it's just extremely hard to guard. So when James Harden gets to the paint and uses that floater move or throws that lob, he's just very impossible to guard. Harden definitely does have the ability to get all the way to the basket and put up contested layups with ease and pretty efficiently as well, but James Harden's best move when he's driving to the basket is that floater, as I said. And now this next point may be a little controversial when you're talking about the best scorer of all time, but I think it definitely ties into everything else. But the next point is James Harden's passing and playmaking ability. Harden is obviously one of the best passers we have in the NBA, and every season he's averaging double-digit assist numbers. Harden always has the knack to find that wide open teammate in the corner for a wide open three, or if he's in the pick and roll, find that wide open guy cutting to the basket, or maybe the rolling guy to the basket for an easy dunk at the basket. And you may ask, why am I adding this to the list in terms of why is James Harden the best scorer of all time, or if he even is? And the reason for that is the fact that James Harden is such a great passer that really opens up the defense and makes everything easier for him when he's just trying to go one-on-one offensively. Because now when the defense realizes that James Harden is such a good passer and playmaker, they really have to stay closer pressure up on the three-point line to other offensive players that Harden has on his team, because he can easily kick out to one of those guys if that guy helps onto James Harden. And especially in the pick and roll with James Harden, if you're going to double team James Harden will find the wide open teammate either rolling to the basket for an easy dunk or a wide open three-pointer. So the fact that James Harden is such a good playmaker and passer in this league just makes him even more impossible to guard offensively. So just to clarify about James Harden, he's obviously one of the best one-on-one players we have in this league, and he can easily get to the basket or shoot that three-pointer using his handles to get open over literally any defender in this league. Nobody can guard James Harden. And maybe of all time, I don't know if anybody could really guard James Harden one-on-one. And another thing, maybe a lot of people don't like it, and I understand that, but James Harden has definitely mastered the art of drawing the foul. And when you talk about why James Harden is such an efficient scorer as well as putting up a ton of points every single year, the ability to draw fouls is one of the biggest reasons why. Obviously, it's very annoying to watch as a defender and even as an NBA fan if you're voting for the other team, or rooting for the other team I should say, but it's definitely an art and you have to respect it. James Harden has definitely mastered the art of drawing the foul, when he would literally take the defender's hands and put it on top of his and just go up and easily get fouls and get to the line. One thing I don't really like about the new NBA is the more fouls that are being called every single season. Every single season it feels like there's more and more fouls being called, but James Harden is just taking advantage of that. But when you think of James Harden, you definitely think of his ability to get to the line, so I thought that should be mentioned in this. So obviously James Harden is definitely at the very least one of the top 5 best scorers of all time, but is he really the best scorer of all time? To answer this question, let's look at the competition that he could potentially have. Now, just coming off the top of my head, I'm definitely going to miss out a few people, so definitely let me know in the comments, but just a few guys I can think of is guys like Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, and Michael Jordan. And some of you may say, let's just look at the numbers and see who has the better numbers, and whoever has the better numbers is definitely the best scorer of all time. But it's much more difficult than that, because as I mentioned before, this season and the new NBA, more fouls than ever are being called, so it's easier for James Harden to get to the basket and average more points that way. And also stats are definitely inflated in this NBA compared to back in the day, so that wouldn't affect Kevin Durant because Kevin Durant is still playing, but it would affect guys like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, because back then when they played, especially Michael Jordan, fouls were way less common, especially for Michael Jordan, and numbers weren't inflated like they are now. So when you look at the numbers, obviously it would say James Harden is the best scorer of all time, but it's not as simple as just looking at the numbers. Now, starting with Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan are kind of the same in the fact that they both did most of their damage from the mid-range. They're both very similar players offensively, obviously, because famously Kobe Bryant modeled his game after Michael Jordan. So both Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, both their signature shots is that post turnaround fadeaway from the high post, which they're very efficient at, and nobody can really guard that. And James Harden really doesn't have that in his repertoire. But James Harden is definitely a way more efficient shooter from three-point range, and I think James Harden also has a better handling ability than both Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. One-on-one ability and who's the best scorer one-on-one is very tough for me to say, because Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant obviously are extremely effective in the mid-range and that post turnaround fadeaway that it's literally impossible to guard. But on the other hand, I will say James Harden can score in more ways than Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, in my opinion, because he can score from that step back three-pointer, or he can get to the basket with that floater, or just get all the way to the rim. Now obviously both Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan can definitely easily get to the rim and are better finishers around the rim than James Harden is, but I think the fact that James Harden is such a prolific three-point shooter and can get three-point shots up even when the defenders know it's coming with that step back move is such an efficient and effective ability that both Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant didn't have. Now I will say, if Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan played nowadays, I do think they would both be much better three-point shooters, especially going for Michael Jordan, because that really back then nobody was shooting three-pointers like they are now, and even when Kobe was playing not too long ago, they weren't shooting as many three-pointers as they're shooting now. But especially for Michael Jordan, that was the case, and even there was one game in the playoffs where he was famously called out for not being able to hit threes, and that game he hit 6 three-pointers in a game, which was unheard of back then. So just for the fact that James Harden could really score the ball very effectively on all 3 levels of the game, I might have to say I would give a slight edge to James Harden over both Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, as crazy as that might be to say. And I could definitely be completely wrong about that, but I just think the fact that James Harden could shoot the 3 ball so effectively really holds a lot of weight to me. But you could easily go either way with this, and I will say if the game is on the line and you really need that one bucket, I would definitely trust Michael Jordan with that over James Harden any day. It's not really even close. I just think it's so hard to compare the two just because the different eras they played in, and if Michael Jordan was playing now, it could easily be a completely different story, and maybe Michael Jordan would be better than James Harden by a huge margin. It's just so close. And really, it might even depend on the day. Maybe tomorrow I think Michael Jordan is a better scorer than James Harden. I just think just due to the new NBA and what James Harden has been able to do offensively really carries a lot of weight to me. But now moving on to a little bit of a more fair comparison is James Harden versus Kevin Durant. Now, when you watch Kevin Durant out there, you can clearly tell he's definitely in the top 3 best scorers of all time. Maybe he's the best of all time, we'll find out. Just because he can score the ball from any area and it's so effortless for him. He has amazing handle for his size. He has an incredible jump shot that he has a very high arc on, and he's also 7 feet tall. So if you put 2, 3, 4, 5 defenders on him, he just easily rises up and hits a shot over the defender, whoever you put on him. He obviously can easily get to the basket because he has insane handles, especially considering the fact that he's 7 feet tall, and he could easily dunk over people as well as finish with crafty finishes along the basket. When you talk about a guy who can score on all 3 levels, you really do think about Kevin Durant. He's a great touch from 3-point range, he has a great mid-range shot as well, and he can easily get to the basket. So when you compare him to James Harden, I really think he could do everything James Harden can, but I think he's a little more smooth and efficient with it, and really effortless with it. I think if Kevin Durant really wanted to, he could win the scoring title literally every single year. And even if you bring double, triple teams, it doesn't really matter. He just easily rises up, and he's so effortless with it. It's crazy to watch out there. So honestly, comparing Kevin Durant with James Harden, I might give the slight edge to Kevin Durant as being the best scorer of all time. But it's obviously extremely close, especially when you think of Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kobe Bryant, and Michael Jordan. I really think it's down to one of those guys for who's the best scorer of all time. Is maybe I'm not thinking of someone and I'm really missing someone, so definitely let me know in the comments. But I really do think it comes down to those 4 guys. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think James Harden maybe is the best scorer of all time, or do you think one of the other 3 guys I listed are, or maybe do you think someone else is? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. Until the next time, peace out, guys.